Hello students, and welcome to our holding procedure examples video. Before we jump into the cockpit, let's quickly discuss the objective of this maneuver and some key factors that we'll be focusing on. A hold is a way for ATC to park airplanes in the sky if needed. Holds can be issued by ATC for a number of reasons, and it is important that pilots know how to properly enter and execute the three different hold entry types. In this maneuver execution video, we will not be covering detailed aerodynamics, maneuver diagrams, common student errors, or the ACS standards. This video is to simply explain and demonstrate the execution of the maneuver and will vary based on the aircraft you are flying. To see all of the additional details we just mentioned and to study this lesson's full-length presentation, podcast, diagrams, flashcards, lesson quiz, and a whole bunch more, look up the holding procedures lesson on our website at wificfi.com. Lastly, before we jump into the cockpit, there are a couple key factors that we need to cover regarding this maneuver. Today, we will be executing one example of each of the three different hold entries. We will begin with a direct entry hold, we'll then go ahead and do a parallel entry, and we'll finish the video with a teardrop entry. We'll be completing all these holds at 8,000 feet MSL, and solely by reference to our instruments. We won't be looking outside the airplane at all. Remember the steps of a hold and you will never go wrong. Just remember this saying, and then you also have to remember the steps within the saying, but remember this saying: the 3 P's and the 6 T's. What this saying means is that there are 3 pre-steps we need to complete prior to beginning the hold, and then 6 T's, the letter T, we need to complete after entering the hold to continue its proper execution. The 3 P's and the 6 T's. The 3 P's are this. So these are the things that we need to do before we get to the hold, before we begin the hold. First, we need to proceed to the holding fix. Today, our holding fix is going to be the OGD or the Ogden VOR. On our way to the holding fix, we'll complete our second pre-step. We'll figure out our magic number. Now, to figure out our magic number, we could really go into detail in it in our knowledge video on Wi-Fi CFI. We will go into a little bit of it here in this video, but magic numbers make the hold and determining the hold entry type so easy. Okay, so if you want more information on that, go watch the knowledge video for holds on Wi-Fi CFI. Again, we will go over it here, but just not in depth like we do in our knowledge video. And then the third step of the 3 P's is to determine the hold entry type. So again, just to recap, the 3 P's are proceed to the fix, on our way there, figure the magic number, and determine our hold entry type, whether we're going to do a direct, parallel, or a teardrop entry hold. Then, once we begin the hold, we'll complete our 6 T's. They are to turn, time, twist, throttle, talk, and turn again. Turn, time, twist, throttle, talk, turn. Those are the 6 T's, and we'll explain how they work for each of the different hold types when we head out to our airplane. Lastly, for more details on how the magic number works, how these 6 T's work, how they differ from each other on each different hold type, and procedures for intersections and distance holds, watch the holding procedures knowledge video on Wi-Fi CFI, as that is just way too much information to cover in today's example video. It's not possible for us to go through every different type of hold you could possibly get in every possible scenario. So we're just be going over the basics. We're going to do 1 direct, 1 parallel, 1 teardrop. They're going to be held over the Ogden VOR, and they're all going to be right-hand turns with 1-minute legs. Okay, but we'll cover the rest in the airplane. Let's head out and fly these holds. Again, if you want to learn more about the intersection holds and all the other things that go along with holds, watch our knowledge video on Wi-Fi CFI. Alright, that's enough here. Let's head out to the plane. Alright, students, welcome out to the airplane. We're going to do our first hold example. Before we do that, I just want to show you how we've got it set up, how we've got the airplane set up, and then what our holding instructions would be. Then as we proceed, we'll go throughout our different steps. So let's hop in the cockpit and show you what we got here. We are at 8,000 feet. We have, as you can see, we have our Ogden VOR tuned in. Again, 8,000 feet, between about 90 and 100 knots. we're going to be doing all of our holds over the Ogden VOR today, so we are heading directly there. Now we have our Ogden DME pulled up right here. We're 4.6 nautical miles away from it, and we also have our timer pulled up on the bottom right so that we can start our timer after we enter the hold. Okay, here's our holding instructions. Our call sign for this airplane is Wi-Fi CFI, as you can see right here. So the holding instructions would sound something like Cessna Wi-Fi CFI, hold southwest the Ogden VOR on the 240 radial, right hand turns, 1 minute legs. Okay, perfect. Lastly, we've got our holding instructions, everything set up. Last thing I want to mention is that as we go throughout, you can see it's a beautiful VFR day, but we're going to be doing everything solely by reference to our instruments, so solely with this view here, pretending or simulating IFR conditions. So let's go ahead and unpause it, and we'll talk as we head throughout this maneuver here. Okay, autopilot's kind of coming back in there. Maybe adjust my heading to the right just a little bit. Alright, remember the steps, the 3 P's, the 3 pre's, and the 6 T's. Okay, we're doing the 3 pre's right now. So these are the 3 pre-steps now that we've got our holding instructions. The first one is that we need to proceed directly to the fix. ATC said hold southwest the Ogden VOR on the 240 radial. So we're heading directly to the fix, which is the OGD or the Ogden VOR. You can see we're heading directly there. Perfect. Next, we need to figure out a magic number. So all we're going to ask ourselves is, does the cardinal direction in the hold match the radial that we were given? So does southwest equal 240? Is 240 southwest heading? You bet. So our magic number is going to be 240 because those two things match. Great. Now we can go ahead and divide up our heading indicator and figure out which kind of hold entry we're going to do based on where that magic number is. So we'll go ahead and lift the right side of our pen, or however you'd like to divide it up, and we're going to say that 240 is in our direct entry section. So we are going to be doing a direct entry hold. Perfect. So there's our 3 pre's, right? Proceed to the fix, figure out what our magic number is, and determine our hold entry type. After we cross the fix, which we're coming up on, we got 1.7 nautical miles, we'll do our 6 T's for a direct entry hold: turn, time, twist, throttle, talk, and turn. And we'll walk you through how those go as we get closer. Last thing I want to mention before we get to the hold and fix and start the hold is, don't necessarily rush and try to get through these 6 T's as fast as you can. Just do them nice and smooth and in the correct order, because sometimes when students rush, they forget steps or they do steps incorrectly. So we're just going to do everything nice and smooth, calm and collected, and get all the steps done. Remember, the first T is to turn. You can see we're about to cross the VOR. That's why we've got our nav flag, and the CDI went all the way to the right. Once it comes back, we can now go ahead and begin our hold since we crossed our fix. So the first T is turn. We're going to turn in the direction of the hold. So we have right hand turns to our magic number. So we're just going to do this big right hand turn all the way to the magic number, which was 240. Remember, we figured that out in our pre-steps. So we're gonna turn 240. Almost. Awesome. Once we've turned to our magic number, the second T is to start our timer. So remember, turn, then time, and twist, throttle, talk, right? Making this good old turn. Wonderful. You see, I'm not rushing through these 6 T's here. We're just doing them nice, smooth, calm, and collected. Okay, so we've turned. Now we can go ahead and start our timer. Turn, time. So I'm going to hit enter. Timer's going to start. And then I'm going to twist. I'm going to put the tail of the CDI needle on our magic number. Remember, put the tail on the magic number, not the head. Never put the head of the CDI needle on the magic number. You always put the tail on it, okay? right there. Turn, time, twist, throttle. If we are going too fast or too slow, we can adjust our throttle between 90 and 100 knots. Looks great. Our RPMs are looking good, so I'm going to keep it right here. But if you needed to adjust your throttle, now would be the time. Turn, time, twist, throttle, talk. We would tell ATC, Salt Lake approach, Cessna Wi-Fi CFI established in the hold at 8,000. That's how we talk and let them know. And then we would just wait for this 1 minute to come for our 1 minute timer to be done, and then we'll turn in the hold direction back around to intercept our inbound course and fly it back into the VOR. So there's 1 minute. Let's go ahead and make our turn. Looks like we're gonna have to go past our heading just a little bit to correct that course. I'm gonna keep the heading bug going. I'm gonna stop and reset my timer. Our first turn here was a pretty big turn, so the first time we go through, I'll have to make a little bit of a course correction. And then we'll go ahead and just time our inbound leg so we know how long our outbound leg should be. The reason we're timing our inbound leg, which obviously we're not going to fly our inbound leg for 1 minute, we're just going to fly our inbound leg back to the fix, right? But we do want to time our inbound leg so that we know how long our outbound leg should be if we're having to make wind corrections or anything like that. So that needle's starting to come back in. I'm going to go ahead and kick it over here. Back on course. Awesome. Okay, so again, we're just going to wait till we cross the VOR here. Once we get the to from flip, we're not going to chase the needle or anything. But once we get the to from flip, we'll go ahead, reset everything. Basically a minute inbound, so that's awesome. So we'll stop and reset that, and we'll make our turn back to our outbound leg. Just remember, if you're flying your heading, or if you're flying the tail of your needle, you're on the outbound leg, right? As long as you've got everything set up right, we're flying the tail of our CDI here, our heading. We're on the outbound leg of the hold. When we're flying inbound and we're following this needle, we want the CDI needle centered. That means we're on the inbound leg. Alright, so I'm going to turn again. Wonderful. Turns over. Go ahead and hit start on my timer. Let it go for 1 minute, and then we'll turn back inbound. After we do this last turn inbound, we'll go ahead and move on to our next example, which will be a parallel entry hold. Just kind of wanted to show you this first example is going to be a little bit longer. Just kind of want to show you the steps of what you would do to continue to stay in the hold once you're in it. But when we go to our parallel and teardrop examples, we'll just kind of show the entry and maybe one quick turn in the hold. Pretty simple. We're just focused on our airspeed, our heading, altitude, just doing basic instrument flying right here, waiting for our 1 minute timer. Fantastic. There's a minute. Stop it, reset it, and we'll do our 180-degree turn to the right. Back around about to the head of our needle, but remember we're going to be focusing on being on that CDI course, so we want that needle centered. Let's see where we are as we make our turn around CDI needle is coming in. That's perfect. Maybe even creep just to the left just a tiny bit. Let's start our timer for our inbound leg so that we can adjust our outbound leg if needed, if we have winds, you know, headwinds or tailwinds that are messing up our leg lengths. But remember, when we're on the inbound leg, we don't turn at a minute. Okay, when we're on the inbound leg, we have to cross the fix before we turn. So we're not going to wait for this to get to a minute. Whenever this flips from a to from, that's when we're going to do our turn. Alright, timing is for the outbound leg. On the inbound leg, you have to go back to the fix before you make any turns. And since we're holding right over the VOR today, the CDI needle is going to be very sensitive, so just make small course corrections to try and get that back. But nothing too crazy, because it will be so sensitive that if you're chasing it all over the place, like if I was to bank full right now, obviously I'd have a hard time and I'd end up chasing it on the outbound. I'd end up chasing it 24/7. So I'm just got a little intercept set up, waiting. And look at this, 1 minute right on the money over here. Stop, reset. We can go ahead and turn to our outbound leg. 240. Now you could stay here for as long as you wanted in the hold, or I guess as long as ATC needed, or until you ran out of gas, right? But you could do climbs in the hold, you could do descents in the hold, you can just hold altitude, waiting for ATC to give you your next instruction. Once we got here, we hit start, but I think we've about beat this horse dead, so I'm going to go ahead and reposition the aircraft. When we come back, we're going to do a parallel entry hold for you. So we'll be back in just a minute. Alright students, welcome back. Let's go ahead and do our parallel entry hold example. Now, plane's still set up just as it was before. Here is our parallel hold instructions. It's going to be Cessna Wi-Fi CFI. We need you to hold northwest of the Ogden VOR on the 310 radio, right hand turns, 1 minute legs. Alright, so northwest, 310. We know that the Ogden VOR is the fix, so the first step for our 3 pre's is to head directly to the fix. We're on our way. Alright, so that's the first step. Second step is we've got to figure our magic number. Does 310 equal northwest? We look at it, yep, 310 is in the northwest section, so our magic number is 310. We can go ahead, divide up our heading indicator. 310 is in the parallel entry hold section. So we know we're doing a parallel hold. Then we just got to cross the fix, do the 6 T's. Parallel holds are basically the same. All the 6 T's are the same, except for the first T and the 6th T. Instead of turning in the hold direction to get to our magic number, we're going to turn opposite the hold direction. That's the only difference between parallel holds and direct holds. So I'm going to show you, instead of making a big right hand turn to 310, we're going to make a left hand turn to 310, which is our magic number. We're going to wait obviously until we cross the fix, which should be coming in a second here. There's our little flip. Wait till it comes back, and we're going to turn to our magic number. But we're turning opposite the hold direction. Remember, we're supposed to be doing right hand turns, but the first 2 turns in a parallel hold are always opposite. So we're going to go left first to our magic number. So there's our turn. Then we're going to start our timer. Then we're going to twist. Remember, we're going to put the tail of the CDI needle on the magic number. We're going to bring the tail all the way around to 310. Turn, time, twist. A little less actually. Sorry, just trying to get it nice and precise here. Awesome. Turn, time, twist, throttle. So we can adjust our throttle. Talk. Solid approach. Cessna Wi-Fi CFI established in the hold at 8,000 feet. Great. So we've done our turn, time, twist, throttle, talk, and now we're going to turn. Again, we're supposed to be doing turns to the right, but our first 2 turns are going to be to the left. So we've already done our first turn to the left. The second turn is going to also be to the left, and we're going to have to go past the head of our needle by about 45 degrees. So there's 1 minute. We're going to take another left-hand turn here. And we're going to set up like a 40-45 degree intercept to bring that needle back. .130, so let's do maybe like, I don't know, 090 is probably good. Now that we've done our first 2 turns to the left, after this, all of the rest of the turns will be to the right. Okay, because it is supposed to be a right hand hold. But when you're doing a parallel, the first 2 turns are opposite, and then the rest of the turns are in the correct direction. We've gone past the head of our needle. I ended up going 50 degrees past the head of our needle to get this CDI to come back. As soon as it starts to move back, we're going to head back towards the head of our needle, and we're going to fly this inbound here until we cross our fix. Then once we cross the fix, we'll be doing right hand turns the rest of the time. Again, pretty close to the VOR, so the CDI needle is going to be fairly sensitive. That's okay, just making small adjustments to our course heading. Try and keep it as centered as we can. But now we're all set up. So now it's just right hand turns. You cross the fix, turn to the right, time for a minute, turn to the right. Cross the fix, turn to the right, time for a minute, turn to the right. And we'll show that to you here. Notice I'm not chasing the needle. It's because I'm so close to the VOR that it's about to go haywire anyways. Getting in that cone of confusion. It's gone. Now it's coming back. So we're going to go ahead and turn to our magic number. Remember, the magic number is always the outbound heading. And our magic number is 310 because northwest equal 310. There's so much information to cover on holds, guys, that we really highly suggest watching the knowledge video where we go over all the diagrams and how to do the magic number and intersection holds and right and left hand turns, how to divide up your heading indicator. Make sure you watch that before you come back and watch this, otherwise this kind of doesn't really even make sense. But again, there's just so much information. This video is already going to be our longest execution video that we've ever made, and we haven't covered even nearly what we need to cover for holds. All we're doing here is just showing a couple of very basic examples. Alright, so now we're on our outbound heading. We could again continue once we hit a minute here on our timer. We'd go ahead, do our right hand turn, get back to the head of our needle, fly it inbound to the VOR, do another right hand turn, and now we're here established in the hold. So I'm going to go ahead and reposition us, and we're going to end the video with a teardrop entry hold. So we'll be back here in just a sec. Alright, welcome back. This is our last hold entry example. We're going to do a teardrop hold. The hold is going to be, let's see. Alright, Cessna Wi-Fi CFI. We need you to hold southeast of the Ogden VOR, 150 radial right hand turns. Southeast of the Ogden VOR, 150 radial right hand turns. First pre-step is proceed directly to the fix, so we are headed directly to the fix. Second pre-step is figure our magic number. Does 150 equal southeast? You bet it does. Our magic number is 150. Third step, we're going to determine our hold entry type, so we're going to divide up our heading indicator. We can see that 150 is in the teardrop entry section, so we'll be doing a teardrop entry hold after we cross the fix. And then we're just going to do the 6 T's. Now, teardrop entries are pretty easy. The only thing that kind of stumps people on the teardrop entries is the very first T. Here's how I like to explain it. Our magic number is 150, okay? the first turn that we're going to do in a teardrop entry is not going to be to the magic number like it has been in a direct or a parallel entry. What we're going to do is we're going to start at the magic number, so we're going to start right here at 150, and we're going to count 30 degrees in the opposite direction of the hold. So our hold is to the right, but we're going to count 30 degrees to the left, so that would be 140, 130, 120. Alright, that's going to be the first heading that we turn to after we cross the fix. So we're not turning to the magic number, but we started at our magic number and we counted 30 degrees in the opposite direction of the hold. So since we're doing right hand holds, we're going to count 30 degrees to the left, which would be 140, 130, 120. We're just crossing the fix now. So that is the heading that we're going to turn to. We're going to turn to heading 120. Again, it's kind of like the toughest part of the teardrop entry, but it will all make sense here in just a second. After we make that turn, we are going to go ahead and start our timer. So turn, time, twist. Here's the other tricky part. Make sure that you put the tail of your needle on the magic number. Now the magic number is not 120. That's just the heading that we turn to. Remember, the magic number is what was in the clearance, 150. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on 150. Not 120. Some people do that on accident. They put it on the heading that they're flying, but that's not what we do for a teardrop entry hold. So we got turn, time, twist, throttle. Everything looks good on our speed. We'll talk. Solid approach test and Wi-Fi CFI establishing the hold at 8,000 feet. Great. And then we're going to make our last turn once this hits a minute. Now, this next turn is going to be in the hold direction and back to the head of our needle so that we're flying the CDI course inbound. So once this hits a minute, we're going to make a big right turn up to around 330-ish. The focus is going to be getting the CDI needle centered. So now we're in the hold direction. Set my timer there. Again, when we're flying inbound, we're looking to get the CDI needle centered. We're not necessarily looking to fly a particular heading. So I might have to come over here for just a minute to kind of get a little intercept. Before we continue to the head of our needle. There's our needle coming in. Bring it back to the head. Keeping that needle centered, and then we'll go ahead and make our right hand turn after we recross the fix. Small adjustments on our heading and our course since we're so close to the VOR. Needle's going full deflection, cone of confusion. Getting our two front flip here. Now we're established in the hold with the teardrop entry, so now we're just doing right hand turns. We're holding southeast of the VOR. We're going to turn right to our magic number, 150. And when we do that, we'll start our timer. Once we get to our heading, we'll go ahead and start our timer. Now, I know we talked about this in the knowledge video quite a bit, but honestly, guys, if you just memorize the 3 pre-steps you got to do, okay, the 3 pre's, proceed to the fix, figure out your magic number, and then use your magic number to determine your hold entry type. Those are the 3 pre's. Then just do the 6 T's for whatever the hold is. If it's a direct entry hold, do the 6 T's for a direct entry hold. If it's a parallel entry hold, do the 6 T's for a parallel entry. If it's a teardrop, then do the 6 T's for a teardrop. And literally just memorize the steps. You don't have to be able to picture these holds in your head at first. That will come with time and with practice. Just memorize those steps. Follow those steps to the letter, to the T, I guess you could say, right? The 6 T's. Follow those steps to the T, and you might even not understand what you're doing at first, but you will fly a perfect hold every single time. Guaranteed. All you gotta understand is the magic number and the 6 T's, and have those steps completely memorized, and I promise you guys will nail all of the holds you ever do throughout your entire career. So thanks for joining us on this longer lesson, I know, but we wanted to go through those holds. Again, we just went through 3 basic hold entries. There's intersections holds, there's waypoint holds, there's correcting for wind, there's making right hand or left hand turns and holds instead of right hand turns, there's distance holds, there's all these different things. So make sure you go and watch the knowledge video on Wi-Fi CFI, see all the diagrams, understand how all those things work. But we got the basics out of the way here today, so thank you for joining us, and we will see you on the next one coming up soon.